Karsten Shields with Coding Alternative. This is going to be episode 3 of our Emotion Code commentary. And this is where we're literally taking the Emotion Code book, written by author Dr. Bradley Nelson, and we're going from cover to cover, discussing, the very incredible thing that is the Emotion Code. This is medicine of the future. And as Emmanuel kind of talked about in the previous episode, we're talking about trapped emotions. And how it's truly an invisible epidemic. We read off about a little list of things that certain people had experienced in their lives, negative situations, either physical or emotional, that had to do with trapped emotions. And they briefly talked about how their lives were changed just by releasing these trapped emotions. Now, just to kind of a recap of what Dr. Bradley Nelson himself said, much of our suffering is due to these negative emotional energies that have literally become trapped within us. The Emotion Code is a simple and powerful method of finding and releasing these trapped energies. Whether you are a doctor or a fisherman, a housewife or a teenager, you can learn the Emotion Code. It's simple. Simple, I love that word. It was actually those words that inspired me to look up and invest myself fully in the Emotion Code, and then later on the Body Code, of January of 2015. I was once a very big skeptic. I would make fun of people who did energy work and used the tool of energy to help other people and to help themselves. But it was through humiliation on my end, humbling myself, and even humoring Dr. Brad for a couple of minutes a day for about 7 days, that I felt that this is what I was supposed to do. I felt very strongly that, what he just said, anybody can learn this. I felt very strongly that myself, a skeptic, turned Emotion Code practitioner for the last 2 years, was what I was supposed to do, and that's exactly what has happened. And so, as Emmanuel said, we're going to pick up where he left off. We're going to talk about Neil's resentment. Now, throughout the book, this is chock full of stories of how people who have experienced negative situations, either emotional or physical, have been able to change themselves. The world is not changing around us. The world will not change for the better around us. We have to change ourselves. Now, we all know Michael Jackson's famous song. We have to take a look at ourselves in the mirror and make the change ourselves. The world will not change. And so what we're doing is we're talking about certain stories of people who have made the change. They have humbled themselves. They have received some help from Dr. Brad or other practitioners and have released trapped emotions, which have caused physical and even emotional ailments, I guess you could say, emotional issues, emotional problems, in order to change themselves and help the world change one person and one heart at a time, which is, of course, Dr. Brad's mission. And so let's jump back in. If you guys have your books, it's page 5 at the bottom, Neil's resentment. In the story, a Canadian teacher teaches or shares how a difficult situation resulted in a trapped emotion that stayed with him, impacting his life in a very negative way. A number of years ago, when I was teaching school, the principal and I just did not get along well at all. We fought almost from day one over one topic or another. She was extremely vicious, vindictive, and emasculating in every way, shape, and form. Finally, about January of the school year, I bailed out. I saw my doctor and went on stress leave. He said, take some time off and regroup and recuperate. So I did that for about 3 months, and at the end of the 3 months, I went back to the school board with a clean bill of health, but with a proviso from the doctor that I was not to be put back in the same situation with this rather nasty principal. Anyway, the feelings surrounding her and that whole situation would never leave. They would well up often, and I would ruminate on the situation, thinking about it, and I would feel my blood pressure rising, and I would feel the anger and resentment building up within me about the way I had been treated, and the fact that she never had any disciplinary measures, even though she had a history of being rather sinister, if you will, to the teachers who disagreed with her approach to principalship. Excuse me. Anyway, this went on for 2 years. I couldn't sleep at night because I had been so bent out of shape from all the negative feelings I was carrying. We were visiting Southern California and went and saw Dr. Bradley Nelson and went to his clinic. and he rolled a magnet up and down my back. Now, the magnet that he could have used was probably one from the Ken, probably this rolling magnet right here called the Mag Boy. I use this one sometimes, but I usually use the Mag Boy 2.0 called the Mag Duo, and this is most likely a magnet that he would have used. It's just a nice, comfortable rolling magnet. So again, he says, he rolled a magnet up and down my back and released this feeling of resentment. And when he did so, I actually felt something leave me. And from that point forward, even though I still don't like the woman, I don't have the negative feelings and the rising blood pressure, the anger, and the resentment, which had possessed me for several years. So that's the story of an emotional blockage gone with these principles and the emotion code that Dr. Brad teaches. Neil B., Alberta, Canada. Very powerful situation. In my experience, the reason we're doing this, this little video series, the emotion code commentary, is to share with you guys some experiences that we've had with our own clients, with our friends, with our families. Excuse me. To hopefully share with you guys some insights that come from our own experience, but relate directly to the book and the stories within the book. I can think of several examples of when a client would come to me and they've either gotten out of a terrible relationship, and the mere thought of the ex-girlfriend or the ex-boyfriend or even ex-fiancé causes them to break down and start crying, even in the middle of work. I particularly, in particular, I had a client, excuse me, several months ago, excuse me, who came to me, who went through a terrible breakup, and the mere thought of this person caused her to fear, caused her to completely forget about life and just focus 100% on this person. And now, in this session, it wasn't just one or two emotions. We had a good list. We probably covered the entire chart of emotions just by addressing this, the emotions that were felt from this one person. They'd been together for a while, and just by addressing all these trapped emotions that had to do with the relationship in general, as well as the breakup, she came to me and then said that when she thinks about the person, she doesn't completely break down. She doesn't lose it. She doesn't forget about what she's supposed to do in life. She acknowledges that although the breakup was terrible, it was nasty, it doesn't hold her back anymore. And we're actually going to talk about that in a minute. There's a person named Jennifer who would self-sabotage due to these same trapped emotions from a relationship. And it's a very powerful thing when you think about how these negative emotional energies, they literally become trapped due to nasty negative events in our lives. Either a nasty principal, or a nasty breakup, a nasty fiancé, or a nasty boyfriend or girlfriend. And it's a very powerful thing when we find out that just by releasing the negative energy from these emotions that were felt, excuse me, it allows you to move forward, it allows you to live your life and to take your life back. And so Dr. Bradley Nelson continues and just says that your future held hostage. Now hopefully this can kind of relate to some of you guys. Excuse me. Do you ever feel that you are struggling under the weight of something that you can't quite put your finger on? Perhaps your life is not turning out how you'd hoped. Perhaps your attempts to form lasting relationships never seem to work out. You may wish that certain events in your past had never occurred, but you feel powerless to move beyond them. You may even have an uneasy feeling that your present is being held hostage by your past in some vague and indefinable way. Now, I really hope that this actually relates to you guys, because all of us have emotional baggage. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. We all go through things, and although we try to kind of move past it and get over it, what we do is we actually bury it deep down. The emotions that we feel are buried deep down inside of us, and they come to the surface every once in a while, and they cause us to feel certain emotions. And sometimes, as Emmanuel mentioned in the previous episode, they can literally cause physical pain. Now, this next story, we're not going to be talking about physical pain, but we're going to talk about how Jennifer self-sabotaged, other relationships due to kind of a bad breakup, if that makes sense. And so hopefully this also kind of relates to you, so that some windows might be opened in your mind, some doors might be opened in your journey to find help to get you on the right track, to release your emotional baggage, which is keeping you from living the life you deserve and that you want to live, and also hopefully guide you to us so that we can provide that help and at least get you on the right track where you be able to help yourself and help others. And so, excuse me, getting over a cold if you couldn't tell. So, Jennifer's self-sabotage. Jennifer's experience is a great example of how trapped emotions can get in your way. She was my daughter's close friend, a fun-loving college student with a bright future. On her way home for the summer, she stopped by to visit our family. Her college life was going well, but she expressed concern that events from her past were still troubling her, and she wondered if she was suffering from trapped emotions. She told me that she'd been involved in a tumultuous relationship with a young man the year before. Jennifer said that since the failure of that stormy relationship, she felt the sting of insecurity every time she met someone new, and had an unfounded fear of commitment that she couldn't overcome. She told me that she seemed to unintentionally sabotage every potential relationship that she began. I tested her and discovered that there was indeed at least one trapped emotion that was contributing to her problem. I decided to help her learn to treat herself so she could continue to release her own trapped emotions without my assistance. Since she lived some distance away, she quickly and easily learned the emotion code and proceeded to find several trapped emotions in her body, most notably the emotion of creative insecurity. This particular emotion arises from a lack of confidence about creating things, from painting a picture, starting a new job, or entering into a new relationship, etc. Jennifer had experienced this emotion in her prior relationship, and it had become trapped within her. She was able to release the creative insecurity as well as a few other trapped emotions from her body within a few minutes, and then continue her drive home. A few days later, she called, exclaiming that she felt an amazing difference. She said that she felt a noticeable improvement in her ability to articulate her thoughts and express herself in the company of a particular young man that she was dating. Previously, she had felt intimidated and shy around him, but after releasing her trapped emotions, she felt very at ease and confident. Months later, she continued to watch the relationship grow. She felt certain that she would have sabotaged it if she had not released her trapped emotions. So, very, very powerful story again. Getting rid of your trapped emotions can help you to overcome the obstacles in your life and can bring new life to your marriage, family, and other personal relationships. Absolutely true. Another client of mine who was, had kind of a rough patch with certain relationships, also came to me for help. She felt like her baggage was keeping her from growing in the current relationship that she was in, as well as potential future relationships as well. And we similar to the previous person I was telling you about from a few months ago. Each relationship had a negative thing, and she harbored a trapped energy, a trapped emotional energy, a trapped emotion, somewhere inside of her, in her body. And anytime that she would either go on a date or just go out dancing with a friend or something, these same emotions would kind of come up, and it would cause her to either sabotage, the date or the relationship, or it would just cause her to become overwhelmed with the same feelings as that were felt originally when the trapped emotions were created and stored somewhere in her body or trapped in her body. And it was after releasing those that she found a greater self-confidence. That lack of that creative insecurity, there was a lot of those, and after releasing those and getting her to a point where she could put herself back out there, get to know more people, get to know new people, she was able to find and make great new friends, and she found her self-confidence again. It was an absolute incredible blessing to work with her and help her with that. Excuse me. Dr. Brad continues saying, freeing yourself from trapped emotions can make you feel more secure and motivated, can liberate you to create the relationships, career, and life that you always wanted. People frequently sense that they are somehow burdened by their past emotions but don't seem to know how to get over them. Some seek help through traditional psychotherapy, which does not directly address trapped emotions but typically addresses their symptoms. Now, Emmanuel talked about that vicious cycle with the pharmaceutical companies, that if you have anxiety or depression, you go to take an antidepressant. But of course, the side effects of that antidepressant cause other symptoms. So you then go back to the doctor. He prescribes you another medication and another pharmaceutical medication to address those symptoms. But in return, you get a mold infection. And so because of that mold infection, you go back to the doctor. He prescribes you something for the mold infection, which then gives you the symptom of depression and anxiety. And it just goes on and on and on, round and round and round. There's more to that cycle, obviously, but in a nutshell, we literally do. We go to these these traditional psychotherapy people. We go to the doctor. We go to get a prescription, which then in return gives us more symptoms that we then have to treat with more drugs. And so many people fail to perform up to their ability and have difficulty making their life work as they should. Oftentimes, the underlying cause of their frustration is a trapped emotion from a past event that they may not realize is sabotaging their events. The next story is a perfect example of how this can happen. Now, Emmanuel's going to pick up where we leave off. He's going to read about Julia and the court the court recorder. That was one of the example stories, excuse me, in his other video, the previous video, and we're actually going to read about her, the court recorder, and how trapped emotions kept her from living up to her true potential in her career. But I know strongly, very, very strongly, that the emotion code works. I've seen it in my own life for the last 2 years. I've seen it in my clients' lives, my family's lives, my family members. I mention it a lot, but just by releasing certain trapped emotions for my wife allowed us to get pregnant for the first time, and funny enough, the second time. We are expecting baby number 2, which is very, very exciting, but it probably wouldn't have happened as easily if we hadn't addressed certain trapped emotions which were keeping her from conceiving. And maybe later on down the road, as we talk about the body code, we'll be able to address and actually go into detail about what those trapped emotions were and what happened in that situation. For more information, you can go to episode 2 of our general videos talking about the body code and the warning lights. But prepare for episode 4 with Emmanuel of our back-to-back emotion code reading, and hopefully you'll be able to take even more value out of these videos that we do, especially with the next story. It's one of my favorites, and I look forward to talking to you guys soon. And make sure that you're sharing this, and if you have similar stories to what we shared, please leave it in the comments below. We'd love to have that conversation going as well. And if not, always make sure to subscribe, and we will talk to you soon. Bye, guys.